Hello, Hakuna Matata, everyone. It's Friday, March 24th, and it's been a very rough week. I was doing some maintenance on the bus, getting ready for another year of travels, and in the middle of doing an oil change, I happened to look up in the oil drain hole and I saw a little something, and put my finger up there and I could feel something moving around. Got some hemostats and grabbed a hold of this thing and pulled it out through the oil drain plug hole, which this just barely fit through. And this is every indication of being a cam bearing, which may very well be the end of the engine. Oddly, this thing has never run so good, only has 40,000 miles, and ain't a thing wrong with it anywhere. It's absolutely in perfect shape. So we're at a crossroads of what we're going to do moving forward. For starters, with encouragement from some of my Facebook group friends, I'm going to pull the oil pan and see what I could see up in there. And I guess if there's any indication at all that the bores in the block where this bearing was are damaged, then we won't even try to do a repair on this. I mean, look at the outside of this bearing. It's not messed up. It might have just like spun around in there with plenty of oil and then rode its way out. I don't know. And look at the inside, how bad. I'm thinking that's like a severe oil starvation. I don't know what in the world. I'm pretty sure this failure occurred somewhere in my 2022 trip around the US, because about halfway into it, I did notice that the oil pressure had dropped slightly, but not enough to be like indicating any catastrophic damage. So I mean, I've replaced my fuel filter, I replaced the centrifuge, and after replacing the centrifuge is when we did the oil change, only because I didn't have a wrench big enough to turn the oil filter, which looks similar to this. The oil filter actually holds oil, and when you loosen the cap, it drains some little valve in the bottom of it or something. So just a moment ago, I finished replacing the oil filter. It's a new element, and I was looking at the old one, which is right here, and it's kind of what you'd expect to see. There's little fragments of metal in it. I already kind of washed my hands here, but let's see if I can find any of them. There's a tiny piece right there, a couple little tiny pieces. Some of these folds have quite a bit. Yeah, like right there. There. So, I mean, that's kind of like the nice thing about these cartridge filters. You don't have to cut them open to inspect them. But this is the second oil change that I'm doing. The first one, I know I looked in it and there was none of this. I mean, there'd be no way I could keep myself from doing this. Look in there. So the only thing I could figure is, this engine had, or this bus, I guess I should say, had 30,000 miles on it when I bought it, and it's an 05, and I've had it for 4 years. So, I mean, it's probably done a lot of sitting in its life. So I guess maybe from sitting long periods of time and dry starts, maybe that bearing kind of slipped in its bore and blocked the hole and then burned itself up. I don't know. I've always given it nice warm-ups whenever I crank it, you know, babying the thing, like I've been taught all my years of dealing with big engines. All right, so I know I'm rambling. I just kind of have to ramble because I got nothing else going on. So I'm not going to start today. Really, all I wanted to do today was take out the oil filter from there, so this canister would drain down into the oil pan. And the oil's been drained now for a couple days, and I got the plug back in it, and I've been saving this little guy. I'll put it back under here so in case we get a rain it won't get any water in it. But probably tomorrow morning what I'm going to do is pull the drain plug and let that drip into there, and borrowed this neat little endoscope. I always call them borescope, but very nice tool. So we're gonna poke around up in the block and see if we can see the origin, and then clean out the pan and make a determination if we think there's any damage that's obvious. We won't even try to pursue replacing the cam bearings. We'll just get a rebuild engine. Such a shame. Good morning. It's Saturday, March 25, and yeah, we're getting started on this thing. So the job for today is to pull off the oil pan, clean out any crud in it, and inspect whatever we can inspect up here and get an assessment of the condition of what we got going on. So the cam bearings are here, right there. This is the cam shaft, and there's a cam bearing between every cylinder. They're not all shown. All right. So for starters, I'm looking at this pickup tube that goes to the oil pump here, and this looks like a stiffener and another stiffener bracket to support the bottom of the pickup tube. I don't know what this is, like a standpipe or something. But underneath the bus, I've seen this part, and it's got a 10mm Allen socket. Pretty sure it did anyway. The same as the oil drain plug. And the oil drain plug on this thing was so tight. It just, I guess because it's an aluminum housing and a steel plug, the Allen, internal Allen on the plug was starting to strip for the oil drain plug. The oil drain plug looks like this right here, except mine's on the side. So I used a vice grip and gripped the plug by that ring right there on the outside circumference, and used the internal, the Allen wrench at the same time to crack it loose. This is not going to give me the ability to grab it with anything other than the Allen, and it really does look like this is going to get in the way of all this stuff when I try to drop the pan, because there's like the axle or something is, I forget what it is, probably the axle is right here. So I can't drop the pan straight down. I got to drop the pan down a little bit and go forward. So I don't know how that's going to work, but let's go under the bus and see what we can see here. God, I don't even know if I can do this, man. So we've got, my flashlight here, about the length of my flashlight from the pan to the axle. And the stuff that's back there, that's battery cables, or I guess battery. They're going to the alternator. Those are high amperage cables that go to the alternator and the starter. So I can move those out of the way, and the pan can drop down to the axle. Up here at the front, though, it looks like it's a taller distance from the engine block right there to the bottom of this cross member at the front of the engine that, God dang, I might not even be able to get the damn thing out. And let me show you what I mean about the drain plug here. There's the oil drain plug, and it was so tight it was starting to round off in the hole there. And before I rounded it off, I went ahead and got the vice grip on this. Up in here, as you're gonna need some more light to see that, aren't you? There. Look at that old rusty thing. I bet you there's no way to get that out of there. So that means even if I can lower the pan, I don't know if I'm going to lower it enough to get that tube that's in there to get around the pickup tube. So if I can't drop the pan, and the original gasket tears, which I don't know what kind of gasket it is, if it's like an O-ring or what, but if the original gasket gets messed up, then I'm gonna have to take the new gasket and fish it around the bottom of the pickup tube and all that shit to try to get it in place, which is not impossible. Oh, I mean, I need to think about if I just put oil back in this thing and send it to a repair shop, or just give up and sell the whole bus maybe to someone who's got the facilities to do an engine swap. Well, we've had some good luck. I've got all the bolts out of the pan except for one, and this pan, boy, it sounds awfully thin. So some other good luck that I've had, we're just draining the last bit of oil out of the pan right now. That guy that's up in there does not have a tube on it. It was just another plug, and I was able to get it out, so that's great. And I've got all the wires and stuff out of the way back here, or loosened anyway, and I got some of it on the front of the engine out of the way here. The ones that are still remaining up in here, I might be able to get around them. Those are battery cables, I believe. Not really. Yeah, I think I don't know what they are, but we're gonna leave those up in there for now. There's my flashlight. There it is. So you can see we only have, I mean, we might be able to snake the top of the oil pan out from around there. And the whole pan is just hanging now on that one bolt right there. So I think we'll put the plug back in now and see if we can get this thing out of there. All right, so it's definitely the cam bearing. Let's see if I can freaking get my camera to cooperate here. Right there, that's the missing cam bearing. You can just barely make out right there on the edge, the space between the block and the cam. And on other ones you can see yeah, come on, focus, baby. You can see the it won't focus. I can see with my eyes anyway. Let me try something else. I can't do it. Well, there's only one more thing I could do here. I don't know if it showed up before, but I don't know enough about these engines, but every one of the connecting rod pins is not really showing up here. Hold on a second. All right, I got the light to come on. Wherever there's a connecting rod, the metal is all blue. Now, I don't know if that's from overheating and this thing is completely toast, or is that heat treatment from the factory. Look at how that's been heated up there. Well, I've seen as much as I could see. I took a whole bunch of pictures with an endoscope, borescope, of the area where the cam bearing used to be. I got, I think, some pretty good shots of the surface of the camshaft. I think the cam looks good. I couldn't get very good shots of the surface of the bore, but I think it's possible. I think it's in good enough condition to pull the cam out and put a new bearing in there. The only thing is, from what I understand, the cam comes out of the back of this engine. The mechanic I talked to said he would take the engine out to do the work. But I'm pretty convinced that we could take the transmission out. We'd have to come up with a support for the block, because the engine is supported by the bell housing here. If we could take out the tranny, support the engine, take out the bell housing and the starter, I think there's the bell housing is the back cover on the engine. I'm not sure. I think it is. Then we'd be able to see the timing gears back there. On the front of the engine, we'd have to take the whole front off, which is doable. The hardest part would be, I think the hardest part would be taking off this pulley. Let's see if I can get some video of what that thing looks like in there. Get some light. So, I mean, that would only just require a behemoth puller that I probably don't have. I mean, I've got a puller for working on cars, for pulling off the harmonic balancer on an automobile. I don't know what tool is that you use for this, but it doesn't mean I couldn't just buy that tool, right? And then take off, you know, the AC bracket and all that good stuff, the fuel pump, and the whole front cover, which is, you know, a lot of work, but that's busy work. And then I think, from looking at the elevation of the cam in here, we'd be able to pull the cam out of the back where the transmission is, provided the transmission's not there. And if necessary, I could line hone the bore and everything, the cam bores. I mean, I could buy a Sun and Hone for line honing. I guess I'd have to verify I can buy oversized bearings. I mean, Jesus, you'd think that would be available. And then I could do this myself and save thousands. But to do it, it would be a long duration job. And I really need to be on a concrete slab to do it.
So we have options. Where I'm staying here at my friend's house, he's got a nice concrete driveway. He might let me put the bus there and we're, be in his way, but Oh, and then I'd have to take loose the valve train from the top, and I'd have to, I think I'd have to support the lifters with magnets or something, because the lifters come out the bottom, and I mean, I guess we could push them up there or whatever and get them out, but it'd be nicer if we could support the lifters from the top. And then we'd have to remove the unit pumps, the injector unit pumps. So I could do this. It's gotta think this one through. Hey, it's Tuesday, March 28th. We're back at it here. We got the tools finally. Where my light is, or I guess I could point, if I can get my arm up in there. Up in there, where my light is pointing, is where the failed cam bearing was. And we're gonna take the opportunity now on this connecting rod that's right here, because I can reach these bolts. I'm gonna pull that cap off of there and take a look at that bearing, since that would be within the carnage of the debris falling out from up above, and see what the condition of that bearing is. I'd like to also get the next one back there if I could, but like I said, I don't have the tools here to rotate this engine. So we're going to do what we can. And I mean, if this bearing looks good, which I suspect it will, or I guess I hope it will anyway, that's going to set the stage for what our corrective action is going to be in the near future. So far, what I've decided is the right method of action here is to remove the engine from the bus, not the transmission, because that gives me some certainty on what the next step's going to be. Having the engine out will allow me to remove the cam and thoroughly inspect the cam bores. And if the cam bores are good, by some miracle of whatever, then we can install new cam bearings and then deal with the camshaft separately. If the cam is still good, we'll just put the whole thing together and then put the engine back in. If the cam's no good, we buy a new cam. If the cam bore is no good, then we still have options. If the engine is already removed, then we can take the engine somewhere and get it line honed out to the next size. And hopefully oversized bearings are available, which I would suspect they are, but I don't know that for sure. But for now, what we're going to do is inspect this one rod throw and put it all back together, put oil in it, and it'll still run, and it runs fine because it ran perfectly fine before we did the oil change. And we're going to keep this thing parked and only drive it as much as necessary to relocate the vehicle as needed. And it'll be the fall of 2024 when we'll have the opportunity to work on this. So we've got options. And in the meantime, I'm looking for what it would cost to get a whole reman engine. Actually, I need to call a guy back today. And that's where we are. I mean, that's damn near like brand new. The tiniest little mark in there, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So this is going right back in there. Got to retorque it. I got the torque specs, and I'm feeling even better about the whole situation.
Again, this is a rod bearing cap right here. All right, I didn't show it because it really wasn't that exciting, but I wiped my surfaces clean on the rod cap, and I put a fresh coat of clean motor oil on it, and inserted the screws. Everything's lined up nice and perfect. The orientation is got the arrow pointing forward like it was. And so the tightening specs are 10 Newton meters, then 45 Newton meters, and then add 90 degrees. And I converted 10 Newton meters onto my inch-pounds torque wrench, which is 88 and a half. I can't do the half, so we're just going to go to 88 inch-pounds. And then I'm going to get my other torque wrench and go to 45 Newton meters, and then a 90-degree turn. All right, I got my half-inch torque wrench. Actually, I think this is the first time I'm ever using this. I just bought this thing, nice new Proto. But it's asking for 45 Newton meters, which is below the lowest reading in the Newton meter scale. But if I convert 45 Newton meters to foot-pounds, it comes to 33 and 33.19, and 30 is the lowest reading on this torque wrench in foot-pounds. So I've got 33 here, more or less, and let's put the whammy on it. All right, everything's all buttoned up, and we put oil in it. We should get oil pressure in just a few seconds. Let's see what happens. You can turn off the air conditioner. There it is. Wonder how long that freaking bearing was out. It's got to be thousands of miles. Well, we're drivable now. I'm not going to run it any more than necessary. Check the oil one more time. Make sure she's topped off. And we are done until next year when we really get into this thing.